As we were studying Indian geography, the topic today we are going to study about physical features of India. This whole of the series will be brought by me. Hello dear student, my name is Krishna. So let's begin. When we see around us, we see different type of physical features or topography like the mountains, rivers, valleys, uh, gorge, canyon, etc. So it naturally begs question that who made all of these particular physical features. So there were different type of geological processes at the different time, particularly weathering, erosion and deposition. And most important of them is the plate tectonics. Now let's take a little glimpse of what deposition or weathering means. So weathering means breaking down and altering of rock, soil and minerals at a near of earth surface through physical, chemical or biological means. So if you take this particular picture, for example, this might be in mountain in initial stages. As you know, CO, that is calcium oxide, violently reacts with water. So due to reaction with water, so the inside particular amount inside this particular amount of CO inside this particular mountain have been eroded by the river, and result you see this particular cave-like structure. This is called chemical weathering. And similarly, there would be a physical weathering just by river erosion and some kind of the biological weathering as well. What is deposition? So deposition is natural processes where eroded materials like coal sediment are laid down and build up a new kind of a landform. So when river enters from steep gradient, meaning high elevation, to the lower course, it takes different type of pebbles, sandstones bouldered with it, and it deposited it to the particular place. We and new kind of physical feature is formed over there. So this is called deposition. Now the most important among them is the plate tectonic. What is plate tectonic? So you know basically the inside the earth there is a magma, and over that there are crust, there are plates, high bigger land masses, and these land masses have a definite orientation. Remember, not a random orientation, but definite orientation due to rotation of earth. So we call these particular plates tectonic plate. Now, in the initial day of forming, Earth's forming, so there was only one landmass and one mega sea, mighty sea. The landmass was named as Pangaea, and the sea is called the Tethys. Later on, this particular landmass broke down into two particular big landmasses, giant landmasses, that is Gondwana and Eurasia. And as time passes, these particular landmasses, Gondwana and Eurasia, are again broke up into several parts. As a result, today we see different type of seven major plates and some of the minor plate. You can look at some of the major plate like the North Antarctica American plate, South American plate, Eurasian plate, Indo-Australian plate, African plate over here, and Antarctic plate over there. These are some of the seven major tectonic plates, and you can also find some of the minor tectonic plate like the Arabian plate, Caribbean plate, Nazca plate, Philippines plate, Caucasus plate, Zande Fuca plate, etc. in this particular map. So India, Indo, Australia and Eurasian plate are important for today's class because these particular two plates are responsible for formation of different physical features in India. Tectonic plate activity broadly can be classified into three categories. One is converging plate boundary. So when there are two tectonic plates and they are moving towards each other, having similar or similar density, so they collide and they form a kind of a structure we call mountains. So this type of the plate tectonic boundary, a converging plate boundary, leads to the formation of mountains and river trenches. The second type of the plate boundary is diverging plate boundary, when the two plates are moving far apart from each other. This is called diverging plate boundary. And some of the major physical feature you can observe by this particular activities: mid-oceanic ridges and rift valleys. The third type of the plate tectonic activity is transform plate activity. This particular tectonic activity happens due to oceanic and oceanic type of plate basically having similar type of density. So they are not able to subside any other plate. So they moves horizontally. And these particular type of the plate leads to the formation of earthquake and volcanic activity. If you observe in the world map, in the Asia Pacific Ocean, you will find the rings of fire. Rings of fire basically is the place where major tectonic activities took place, or there are major tectonic islands or volcanic activities over that particular part. And due to the converging plate boundary, the formation of mountains, especially in case of India, the Himalaya took place. And you can also observe some of the other mountain region in the world like Alps, Appalachian, etc. We have understood what are plate tectonic and what are the driving force for the formation of different physical features. If we divide India's physical division, so it could be into 6 broad divisions. They would be which the mountains, the northern plains, Indian plate, Indian plateau, coastal plain, Indian desert, and then Iceland. Now let's look each of them in a little detail. First, talking about the Himalaya. So when Indian plate collided with the Eurasian plate, if you have remember, we have looked at these particular two plates on this particular map. This is Indo-Australian plate, and you can consider only this particular part, which is called Indian plate. It was basically part of the Gondwana plate. So this particular area was initially part of the Gondwana, and the upper portion uh, located to the northern side is called Eurasian plate. When it broke down, so thereafter different type of the plate tectonic plate we can find thereafter. So when the Eurasian plate, when the Indian plate collided with the Eurasian plate, it leads to the formation of the Himalayas. The Himalayas are geologically young and structurally fold mountains. What does geologically young means? So they are in geological time scale, they are younger mountain as compared to other physical features of India. We can compare with the Deccan Trap, which is older than the Himalayas. But this geological young does not means that the Himalayas of India formed a couple of months back, and they are structurally fold mountain. We know what is a structurally fold mountain. When two plates are colliding, so they form what we call Himalaya, and the Himalayas are formed by the converging plate tectonic activity. The mountains run in west-east direction from Indus to Brahmaputra, and they form an arc of 2,400 kilometer from Indus to Brahmaputra. Their width vary from 400 kilometers in Kashmir to 150 kilometer in Assam, and we can take an average of 300 or 250 as their width. One important thing over here is they are wider in the western part as compared to the eastern part. As you can see, they are 400 kilometers in the western part and 150 only in the eastern part. The altitude is the highest at the eastern half, middle of the eastern Himalayas. And as you observe the highest mountain peak of the world, that is the Mount Everest, which lies on these particular Himalaya, on the middle of this particular Himalaya. So Himalaya consists of basically three type of longitudinal range. The first one in the northernmost side, it is called Greater Inner or Himadri, the most continuous and loftiest of all mountain with an average height, peak height is 600 meter. And you can observe the Mount Everest located in this particular mountain region. These fold mountains are asymmetrical in nature. What is asymmetrical? So when we broke down particular mountain range, so the western part does not, the left part does not overlap with the eastern right part. We call it asymmetrical basically. And Himalaya is composed of granite. And Himalayas are source of many rivers, especially Ganga, Brahmaputra, and Indus, which are the Himalayan river. So Himalaya are the ultimate source of these particular river. Now, what is granite type of stone? So when magma inside the earth try to reach to the surface of earth but unable to find the suitable path, it cool down inside the earth, beneath the earth, and it cool down. Then result leads to the they are subjected to the pressure, temperature, and result leads to the formation of granite type of stone. Don't bother yourself right now what are granite stone and different type of stone. This is part of the physical geography and we will be studying these particular stones over there. Now, range of these Himadri called the Lesser Himalaya. The next Himalaya after the Himalaya we have studied, that is Greater Himalaya, Inner or Himadri Himalaya. The next Himalaya southward is the Lesser Himalaya or we call Himadri. It is also locally called by Himachal type of Himalaya or Himachal Himalaya. It is compressed and altered rock. So the average height ranges from 3,700 kilometer to 4,500 kilometers with an average width of 400 kilometer. So you need to compare the length and width with the Greater Himalaya. So you know what is the height of the length of Greater Himalaya, which is 2,400 kilometer with approximately 300 kilometer width. Now you compare the length. So average height over here is 3,700 kilometer to 4,500 kilometers. So you can consider 4,000 as an average height, whereas the average height of the Greater Himalaya is 6,000, or particular peak is Mount Everest, which is 8,848, I think. Purvanchal Range also forms the longest range, and it is important also. Some of the important mountain series are there are Dhauladhar and Mahabharata. The range consists of famous Valley of Kashmir, the Kangra, Kullu Valley in Himachal Pradesh, and this particular region is well known for its beautiful hill stations. The outer layer of the Himalaya is called Shivalik, or the next layer of the Himalaya southward is called Shivalik, with an altitude varying 900 km to 1100 km, with an average width of 40 km from 10 to 50 km. So again, you can compare the Shivalik with the Lesser Himalaya. So Lesser Himalaya has average height 3,700 km. We can consider it 400 km, while the the Shivalik has, we can consider 1,000 km average altitude with the average width of, we can say 35 to 40 from 10 to 50. It composed of unsolidified sediment brought by the different type of river. So we have understood different type of Himalaya. So we can also locate. So this is the Greater Himalaya, and you know this is the longest continuous series. Thereafter is the Lesser Himalaya. You can observe the discontinuity of the Lesser Himalaya over there, and the southward. Next after that Greater Lesser Himalaya is the Shivalik. So these are the particular three type of mountain ranges. You can also locate Karakoram, Ladakh, and Janskar ranges over this particular map. So we have understood the three major Himalayas, and these valleys are covered with the thick gravels and alluvium. Alluvium is basically the deposit brought by the rivers flowing in that particular region. The longitudinal valley laying between Lesser Himalaya and Shivalik is known as Doon. You can find a different type of Doon over there. Dehradun, Patli Doon, Potli Doon are some of the famous Doon. If you locate in the map, so you can find some of the Dehradun in Uttarakhand, Patli Doon, Potli Doon in this particular area. Himalayas are also divided from west to east by the different river and demarcated by the different river, and they are known by different name in these particular areas. If you look onto the map, so from the Indus to the Satluj region, this Himalaya particular Himalaya is called Kashmir Himalaya. It is also locally known as Punjab Himalaya or Himachal Himalaya. The Himalaya, which is demarcated next after the rivers by Satluj and then Kali. Kali is located on the border of, we can say, Uttarakhand, area surrounded Nepal. This is known as Kumaon Himalaya. And the next Himalaya after Kali and Tista, it is called Nepal Himalaya. If you locate, so Kali is around somewhere here, and you can locate Tista, this particular river here. So this is called Nepal Himalaya, and you can also locate Nepal over here. From Tista to, okay, give me a second, please. From Tista to Dihang, this is called Assam Himalaya. So we have understood Punjab Himalaya, Kumaon Himalaya, Nepal Himalaya, Assam Himalaya. The rivers which demarcated them are also important. Indus to Satluj, Satluj to Kali, Kali to Tista, Tista to Dihang of the Assam. Brahmaputra marks the easternmost boundary of these Himalaya. Beyond the Dihang Gorge, gorge is basically a valley eroded by the rivers. On the Dihang Gorge, the Himalaya bends sharply to the south and known as Purvanchal. If you look at this particular place, so after this is Brahmaputra river, and these particular Himalaya bend towards south. Okay, so these particular Himalaya, especially the Shivalik, is composed of sedimentary rock. What is sedimentary rock? The first rock formed after volcanic activity when magma or lava cooled, solidify, it is called igneous. And if these igneous rocks are brought by river to the different places, subjected to some of the physical forces, and then settled in some particular part, it is called a sedimentary rock. The Purvanchal comprises of Patkai Hills, Naga Hills, Manipur Hills, some of the hill. So the eastern Himalaya part is called Purvanchal, and it comprises of Patkai Boom, Naga Hills, and Manipur Hill over there. So we have understood three types of Himalayan ranges. Now, here are some of the important mountain series in this particular part. So the first mountain, and these I have arranged in the decreasing order of their height. The world's highest mountain series is Mount Everest with a height of 8848. Next after that is Kanchenjunga, followed by Mekalu, then by Dhaulagiri, Nanga Parvat, Annapurna, Nanda Devi, Kamet, Namcha Barwa, and Gurla Mandhata, in which Kanchenjunga, Nanga Parvat, and Nanda Devi, Kamet, and Namcha Barwa, these particular mountain peaks are located in India, and rest of these particular mountain are located outside India. So if you struggle to remember these particular mountain from north to south, north to east, and according to their height, so this you can learn it through mnemonics, and the video will be posted in the description of this particular video. So now the area next after Himalaya is called Northern Plain in the southward direction. Area just next after Himalaya. So these Himalayas are formed by the interplay of major rivers, especially Ganga, Indus, and Brahmaputra, and their large and small tributaries. The plain is formed by the alluvial soil and deposition of alluvial in this particular vast basin laying at foothill of the Himalaya. What is alluvial soil? So a river carries different type of deposition, different type of pebble, stone, boulders, some kind of a soil, and it deposited to some place, especially on the plain area. The soil is called alluvial soil. So the area of the northern plain is 7 lakh square kilometer with a length of 2,400 kilometers, width varying 240 to 320 kilometer. Due to rich soil, adequate water supply, and favorable climatic condition and much fertility, this particular area, which is northern plain, especially the Gangetic plain, is highly densely populated. River in this particular plain are in depositional work. meaning they carry different type of the load from their origin and they deposited in this particular place. The lower coast, due to the gentle slope of the velocity of the rivers, decreases, which result in the formation of riverine island. And you know the largest riverine island of the world, Majuli Island, located on the Brahmaputra River. A river on the lower courses split into many numerous channels due to deposition of slate, and these kind of the channel formed and we call it distributary. Why? As the river enter into the lower plain, when it is in the mountain, from mountain to the lower downside, meaning with the high peak, they have higher velocity. When it enters in the plain area with gentle slope, so their velocity decreases and they also started depositing things, and due to that they have to choose different path, we can say, and this is distributaries, as we have seen in case of deposition in the initial some of the initial slide. Okay, give me a second please. So this is what we can say distributaries, where the river have been divided into the numerous small and large channels. Okay, the Ganga Plain extend between Ghaggar and Tista River, spread over the state of North India, sorry, Haryana, Delhi, UP, Bihar, partly Jharkhand, West Bengal, and some part of the Assam. So the some of the important feature of this particular northern plain are formation of this this type of figure. You know the river enter from the mountainous region having steep slope, higher slope with high velocity. It consists of big boulders, pebbles, stones, and smaller particle, fine particle. So as it enters to the plain area, so it has to deposit all the heavy boulders first, then the next particle, the small particle, then next small particle, and the smallest particle. So they form this kind of structure, and this particular structure is known by the different name. So the river, after descending from the mountain, deposit pebbles in the narrow belt of 8 to 16 kilometer parallel to the slope of Shivalik, and this area is known as Bhabar. So all the rivers or stream disappear in this particular area. Reason being, the river find some of the holes in these particular pebbles. There is enough space, so the river can go under these particular pebbles. So they disappear. South of this particular Bhabar, the area of the small particle as compared to that of the Bhabar, which has higher, bigger boulder, these rivers starting re-emerging and forms wet, swampy, marshy region, and this is known as Tarai region with thick forest, because this particular part is fertile. And this is if you clear the forest, this particular area being high fertile is good for agricultural purposes. The largest part of the northern plain is formed of the older alluvium present as a terrace like feature, and people perform terrace farming in this particular area, especially in the hill station like Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh, and this particular area is known as Bhangad or Bangar. So this particular area you can locate is Bangad. The area between which is uh, in which a river deposits new deposition every time. So it is known as this is known as Khadad, right? This particular area. So the soil in this region contains calcareous deposit locally known as kankad, meaning small particle like the small sandstones. The newer, younger deposit of the floodplains are called khadad. You can look at this particular place, and they are renewed almost every year and are fertile and thus ideal for the intensive agriculture. Since this particular area is renewed by the rivers, deposited a newer deposition by the rivers, so this is area, the area, corner area of this particular khadar is also fertile. And what is intensive agriculture? So if you practice agriculture, You see, every soil has its capacity. If we practice agriculture for a particular soil to its maximum potential, even more, we call it intensive agriculture. This is done basically, especially for the agricultural purposes. Okay, let's move on to the next one. The physical feature next after that southward is called Peninsular Plateau. So let's have a little glimpse of the Peninsular Plateau. So this particular area, Malwa, Bundelkhand, Bagelkhand is called Peninsular Plateau. Now let's understand little bit of it. The Peninsular Plateau is composed of old crystalline, igneous and metamorphic rock. I have told you what is igneous rock, right? So igneous rock are formed when the lava, the magma reaches to the surface of earth and it loses some of the gas or acid, so it becomes lava, and when it solidified, the rock are called igneous. And metamorphic rocks are those rocks who are subjected to high heat, temperature, and pressure. So the rocks form are called metamorphic. And crystalline rocks are those rocks who are unable to find the path onto the surface and solidified inside the surface. They are called crystalline surface, a crystalline rock. Don't bother yourself right now understanding these particular type of rockets. We will be understanding these particular rocks formation in the physical geography of India in upcoming classes. So formed by the breaking and drifting of the Gondwana land, thus making the oldest landform. We have seen where is the Gondwana land in the initial slides. So let me head you on that particular. So this is Gondwana plate. And especially if you talk of the Indian plate, so these particular plateaus are formed by the Indian plate. So India's physical, the Himalayas are part of the Eurasian plate, while the Peninsular Plateau and the remaining part are part of the Indian plate. Please do remember this differentiation, this difference between two features of India, that is Himalaya and the remaining part. Okay, the plateau has broad and shallow valleys and rounded hills, consist of broad divisions, namely the Central Himalaya and the Deccan Central Highland, and then the Deccan Plateau. So if you locate the Central Highland Deccan Plateau on map, this would be, so this particular part is called the Central Highland and this is called the Deccan Plateau. We will be understanding Deccan Plateau as well. So the part of the Peninsular Plateau laying in the north of Narmada River carries major part of the Malwa Plateau known as Central Highland, and it is surrounded by the Vindhya Range, and on the western extension it is surrounded by the Aravalli and merged with the desert of the Rajasthan. Let's locate it. So these particular three plateaus, that is Malwa Plateau, Bundelkhand Plateau, and Bagelkhand Plateau, consist of the Central Highland. So this, you see, this particular line is the Vindhya Range. Okay, give me a second, please. Yes, it is Vindhya Range, and you know the Narmada rivers flows between Vindhya and Satpura. So this is Vindhya Range. So this is called the Central Highland, consist of Malwa, Bundelkhand, and Bagelkhand, and it is the eastern southern boundary we can say is marked by Vindhya Range, and there is an Aravalli on the left side, and the next after that, this is Thar Desert of Rajasthan. River draining in this particular area are Chambal, Sindh, Betwa, Kane, forms the southwest to the northwest of boundary, thus indicating the slope of this particular area. The central highland are wider in the west and narrower in the east. One important thing that please do remember, Chota Nagpur Plateau is not part of the central highland. It is part of the eastern highland we can say, but not part of the central highland. The eastward extension of this plateau is locally known as Bundelkhand and Bagelkhand, and Chota Nagpur Plateau drained by the Damodar River. Deccan Plateau is a triangular landmass. So let's first locate Deccan Plateau. So this particular region is called Deccan Plateau. It is approximate triangular. The Satpura Range flank the base in the north, while the Mahadev, Kamir, and Makal forms the eastern boundary. So you can find the Satpura Range. This is Satpura Range, and you can also find some of the Makal, Makir, and Mahavir ranges on the eastern side. The Deccan Plateau is a triangular. Okay, the Deccan Plateau is higher in the west and slopes gently eastward. The extension of this plateau is also visible in the northeast, and it is locally known as Kharbi Anglong Plateau. So let me just quickly locate Kharbi Anglong Plateau. So this particular part. So this particular part is called Kharbi Anglong, and this is called Purvanchal Himalaya. So some of the landform you can find out. Okay, let's go to that particular slide. Give me a second, please. So the prominent hill in these particular ranges is Garo, Khasi, and Jayantia. So you can find Garo, Khasi, and Jayantia. So Garo, Khasi, and Jayantia are part of the Peninsular Plateau region, not part of the Himalaya. So you also need to keep this difference in mind. So you can locate Garo, Khasi, and Jayantia hill over there. These are part of the Indian Plateau, not part of the Himalayan. Now, the western and eastern Ghat makes its western and eastern boundary respectively. You can locate western and eastern Ghat. The western Ghat are parallel and they are continuous, and there are only few passes we can find in the western Ghat, that is Thal, Bhor, and Pal Ghat. So we can locate these particular Thar, Pal, and Bhor Ghat. So there are only few passes, as I told. This is Thal Ghat. So from where when we can enter to India, Bhor Ghat and Pal Ghat. Average height of Western Ghats are higher than that of Eastern Ghat, and with the average elevation of 900 to 1600 kilometer as against that of 600 kilometer of the Eastern Ghat. Eastern Ghat are discontinuous and having lesser elevation. Eastern Ghat stretches from the Mahanadi Valley to the Nilgiri of the south, Mahanadi River and the Mahanadi Valley to the Nilgiri, and they are discontinuous and irregular, discredited by many rivers flowing in the Bay of Bengal. Western Ghat causes orographic type of rainfall. Now let's understand what is orographic type of rainfall. You know, the southwest monsoon arises from the Arabian Sea, this particular part, and it has to face the Western Ghat. So when it is facing the Western Ghat, the southwest monsoon carrying moisture from the ocean, it has to face the Western Ghat, so it loses all the moisture on one side of the mountain. The leeward side of the mountain is still dry. We call this is orographic type of rainfall. So on the there is a big hindrance, or we can say obstacle in part of the southwest monsoon, that is Western Ghat. Due to that, the Western Ghat are responsible for orographic type of rainfall. The highest peak in the Western Ghat are Annamurai and Duda Beta, while Mahendragiri is the highest peak of the Eastern Ghat. So you can locate these particular peak on your map as well. So Annamurai you can locate Duda Beta over here, Annamurai here, and you can also locate Mahendragiri, the highest peak of the Eastern Ghat. You can also find some of the important hills over there, that is the Chevroi Hills and Javadi Hills. One of the distinct feature of the Deccan Plateau is the black soil, and which is rich for the jute cultivation, and locally this is known as Deccan Trap, and this soil is of volcanic origin, means it has been formed by the volcanic eruption later on the there are this particular soil is denuded over time, so becoming fertile, and which is ideal for the cultivation of jute. So we have understood what peninsular plateau is. Now let's understand the next type of the physical feature division of India, which is the Indian desert. So Indian desert, it lies toward the western margin of the Aravalli Hill and including sand plain covered with the sand dunes. This region receives very low rainfall below 150 mm per year. This is an arid climate, and there are some of the distinct flora of this particular part are like cactus and all the thorny bushes with the lower vegetation, and only major river in this particular area, which is Luni, and this is also underground. One of the special feature of the desert region is formation of barchan. Barchan is it covers large but longitudinal dunes become more prominent near to the Indo-Pak borders. Barchan is basically, we can say, semicircular type of features formed by the wind in that particular area. So wind picks some of the sand from one particular area and deposit it to some other area, also forming a kind of a structure, semi-arc type structure. Arc type structure, it is called dunes or barchans. So this is Thar Desert of India. The next after Aravalli Range. Okay, the next feature, physical division of India is the coastal plain. The peninsular plateau is flanked by the stretch of narrow coastal strips along with the Arabian Sea and the Bay of Bengal in the east. So you can find numerous coastal plain named after local name like Konkad in the Mumbai, Goa. Central stretch is called the Kannad Plain, while southern stretch is referred as Malabar Coast. Let's look it on these particular coasts on map. So you can find the Konkad Coast over here, Malabar Coast over here, Utkal Coast, Andhra Coast, and Coromandel Coast. Larger rivers such as Mahanadi, Godavari, Krishna, Kaveri have formed extensive deltas on this particular type of the coast, and delta formation is especially seen on the eastern coast, not on the western coast. Like Chilka is an important feature along with the eastern coast. You see the largest brackish water lake of India is Chilka, while the largest freshwater lake of India is Wular Lake of the Jammu and Kashmir. Now, a remaining part is of the physical division is the Iceland. So there are basically two group of Iceland. One is called the Lakshadweep Island, located closest to the Malabar coast of Kerala, composed of small coral islands. Earlier, this was known as Lakshadweep, Minicoy, and Amnidev. In 1973, they were renamed as Lakshadweep. Lakshadweep literally means group of 1 lakh Iceland, but actually there are not 1 lakh Iceland. It covers a small area of 32 km square. Kavaratti is an administrative headquarter, and Lakshadweep has a great diversity of flora and fauna. Pitti Iceland, which is inhabited, has a bird sanctuary. Elongated chain of Iceland located in the Bay of Bengal, extending from north to south, are Andaman and Nicobar Island. They are bigger in size, but they are scattered. So just let's look at all these particular Iceland. Okay. So you see on the eastern side, Bay of Bengal, we call group of Iceland, Andaman and Nicobar. So Andaman consists of some of these particular Iceland. You can find Northern Andaman, Middle Andaman, and South Andaman. And the capital is Port Blair. Nicobar Island consists of this particular small group of islands on the Bay of Bengal. On the other left hand side, this is called Lakshadweep. On the Arabian Sea, you can find some of the Agati, Kavarati, etc. on this particular Iceland group of Iceland. Degree channel is also important. This question have been asked in frequently in exams, like 9-degree channel separates what? Minicoy to the northern Lakshadweep group. and also on the right side as well. These are for the strategic importance, especially for developing some of the ports and some of the naval or armed forces, uh, strategic logistics part, so that it can run efficiently. And they have great diversity of flora and fauna. Reason for that, they are located to near to equator. And you know the area which is near to equator receives high temperature. High temperature leads to the formation of a particular air to rise up, and when these particular air rises they will solidify or cool down, condense in the upper atmosphere, and then it will lead to the formation of rain. Due to the rain there is a high vegetation. If there is a high vegetation, there will be high wildlife also. So this is one reason, that since they have great flora and fauna, because they are located on the equator side. India's only active volcano is found on the Barren Island in the Andaman and Nicobar Island. This is again an important fact you can remember. Some of other important fact you can remember over this is Barren Island is famous for because it is India's only active volcano, and it is located on Andaman and Nicobar side, that is on the Bay of Bengal. Indira Point is located the southernmost point of India is located on the Great Andaman Nicobar Island. The southernmost point of India is Indira Point. Cellular jail is located in the southern Andaman Island or in the Port Blair. Andaman Nicobar Island are separated by 10-degree channel, and the tribe found in these Andaman and Nicobar Island is you can see Sentiles, Onge, Great Andamanis. So some of the tribals. Some of the important fact for the Lakshadweep Island, you can also find the over here, that is the smallest union territory of India is Lakshadweep. Sea surrounds Lakshadweep Island is Arabian Sea. Capital of Lakshadweep is Kavaratti. And one important feature is the Lakshadweep is of the coral origin. So you can read the particular information given over there. So successfully we have understood how the different type of physical features are formed, as also we have to study this in physical geography, but we have looked upon a glimpse, we can say, about the Indian geography of India, physical divisions of India, in which we have studied how they are formed, what are the different forces, deposition, weathering, especially plate tectonics. Then we have looked at different divisions like Himalaya, northern plains, plateau, Icelands, and coastal plains. So thank you for your attention till now. We will see you in the very next one with the next topic. Till then, happy learning and have a great day. Thank you.